All right, so that's a good example of this early period. So the next one that we're going to look at is also in the key of F major. So Opus 59, number 1. And these are dedicated to a politician. Actually, he was a Russian ambassador to Vienna. So he was a patron of Beethoven's, and Rassoumovsky was a very fine violinist who played in a very excellent quartet. And Beethoven wrote these 3 quartets, and they included some Russian themes. So sometimes they're called the Russian quartets too, but usually it's, Rassoumovsky. And so that was a personal touch. So we're going to look at the first movement of this as well. So Sonata Allegro is the form. Some things, though, that are different than what we saw in 18 number 1. First is that you won't find double bars and repeats around the exposition. So and this, we're going to see the same thing in the Brahms clarinet and piano sonata that we look at. The first movement of that Brahms duo sonata also is in sonata allegro form, but doesn't have repeats around the exposition. So another thing that is different has to do then with the proportion of the sections, and especially since you don't have a repeat of the exposition, it makes the exposition seem shorter. So it's 102 measures. The development is 152 measures. The recap is 82. And then the coda is 62 measures long. So the development is the longest section. The coda is over half as long as the exposition, and this then continues to develop themes, and is, has the nature of a second development section. So that's a second idea, has to do with the proportion of things. There is a term that I want you to be able to define, is the term fugato. And a fugato is a fugue-like section in a homophonic work, such as sonata allegro, as a homophonic type of form. And we'll see the final section of the development features a fugato. So it's basically just taking a theme and presenting that, and then you have successive entrances of all voices restating that same theme, overlapping each other. So we'll put your fugue-like passage. So a fugue-like passage in a homophonic form, such as sonata allegro. And so the fugue-like aspect just has to do with, stating a theme and then having overlapped, answers of that theme. Callie?
How is it different from stretto?
Stretto is a shorter passage, and it's something which then you don't have the complete statement of the theme before another voice comes in. This will completely state the theme, and then you'll have a second voice that comes in and will state that theme. You know, so the stretto, the voices come in before the theme is concluded. So that's the main difference. They're similar, very similar though. All right, so a fugato is more like a fugue exposition, whereas stretto is like the end of the fugue, where you have those overlap statements and things. All right. Then another thing that you should look for, and again, there's a map or a chart of this movement, but this makes use of extensive motivic thematic development. So pass those 18 number 1 across. I'll show you a couple of things and then we'll stop. So this opening movement, 59 number 1, begins with a statement of the theme, the cello. And so this opening theme, you're going to hear that idea. When you get to the bottom of the first page, you'll see that you have a transition where it says dolce. And this is taking the second motivic idea. So what Beethoven's going to work with is this. He's going to work with that just 4 notes that ascend in the scale. So that's easy, to work with. And then he's also going to take that idea and you have so you have this, which is taken from, and then you also have the next measure, which has, so how does that relate to one of those first 2 notes?
It's the first half of the...
Yeah, so it's just that, and how does he do that? How's that manipulated? In diminution, right. So you have that motive that's in diminution. You see how Beethoven pairs the first 2 violins against the viola and the cello in this transitional passage, because then they answer with the same thing. And when you get to the next page, the B theme occurs there at measure 60. So 4th system, 2nd page. But if you look at the last 2 measures of the 2nd page, at the viola and the cello, how does that compare to the opening?
The scalar theme presented in augmentation.
Now it's an augmentation, right? So you're going to find lots of motivic thematic development using techniques like diminution and augmentation in this. And there is also a second thematic idea that is presented on the opening page. So if you go back to the first page, at measure 19, it reaches a real strong cadence on tonic and fortissimo there, and then you have this thematic idea. That thematic idea is what he's going to use as the basis in the fugato passage that starts at the bottom of page 5. If you'll turn to that real quick. Beethoven's even going to take this, this idea of, just going to take that little 2 notes, motive, and is going to use that in the second violin while, or first violin, while the second violin plays. And that's going to be the fugato thing that he's going to overlap and present that next in the viola. And then the first violin comes in on the second system at page 6, and then you hear it in the cello at the middle of the second system, page 6. And so you have those first 3 systems on page 6 that are this fugato passage that's at the end of the development. All right, we're going to stop there for now. So if you'll pass those across.